Now, let's get an update. We are joined by KwaZulu Natal Education Department Spokesperson Muzi Mahlambi. Muzi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I can only imagine the devastation because you are currently right in it. Talk to us about what the current situation is in terms of schools. We know at this point 140 schools have been affected. Some schools were closed. What is the latest?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers at home. The latest, as you have pointed out, the number is 147 schools. That is the formally reported schools. But we are of the view that there could be many. It's only that principals of schools and our district officials could not access schools due to some roads being closed. Some roads continue to collapse, and we have observed sudden mudsliding in some of the areas. So some areas are still very dangerous for our officials and educators to access those schools to make an assessment. But we have issued a circular and a statement indicating to our schools to not to take any risk going to those schools until next week Tuesday, when we are hoping that by then the rain shall have subsided, and we shall be in a position to then make a proper assessment of the extent of the damage.
Now, we know that many areas, like you pointed out, are currently, high-risk areas. We know that Umzumbe, Amawoti, Quarry Heights, as an example, Umlazi, etc., are one of those areas that, authorities are watching very closely. But we last heard that, in Pinetown, particularly, that, teachers and some pupils spent the night at a school in Pinetown, Tolulwazi Secondary School. Can you give us the latest in regards to that? Have they been rescued? What's happening there?
Yeah, we can confirm that a day before yesterday, 12 educators and 40 learners had to spend the night at the school because they chose not to take a risk of crossing and overflowing a kind of a bridge, and there was a car that got washed away just in front of them, so they took a decision to retreat back to the school. Yes, we can confirm that they were evacuated yesterday using helicopters with the help of the military because the police could not assist them morning yesterday when they brought two boats. It occurred that it was still dangerous for even police to use the boats, but we can confirm that as from yesterday, all learners and educators slept home warmly so.
That's very good news. Now, the province has been declared a state of disaster. I know that you said you've sent a circular out to the various schools and possibly resume on a Tuesday next week. With this state of disaster, what does that mean for the Department of Education?
This afternoon we had the president visiting the province together with the Minister for COGTA to assess for themselves as to the extent of the damage and as to whether to declare the province a state of disaster as they have done. We are of the view that the damage is much more as we could imagine. In the residential areas, that's where the schools are located. So it stands to reason that our schools are also adversely affected.
In the July unrest, we know that many schools were, destroyed, and made it very difficult to resume school when, the academic year began in January of this year. And now with these floods, which are considered one of the worst, even when you consider 2017-2019 floods, had you managed to, get ready now after 3 months of the academic year being, hadn't resumed? Had you managed to pick up the pace and open those particular schools? What does this latest 140 schools being destroyed mean, if you consider the July unrest as well?
It's very much adding to the financial burden that we already had, given the fact that 2 years ago we had over 400 schools that were storm damaged, and the unrest that you are referring to the last year, July 1. And then December and January, we had about another 188 schools that were storm damaged. So whilst we were rearing ourselves from those scars, repairing the schools, in some instances having to provide mobile classes, and then now this added storm damage. And with the very depleted fiscals that we have as a result of the budget cuts that we have had over the 2 financial years, it's going to be very difficult for us to move with the speed at which we would love to. But we are very much hopeful that because the president was in the province together with the premier, we will be getting a relief that will take us somewhere, that even if we are disturbed in terms of teaching and learning, but we will not be adversely be disturbed, but speedily we will be on our feet.
At the moment, do you have any indication in terms of how you will then ensure that those students will then be accommodated come next week Tuesday, if you have to consider just how many schools are now destroyed and are not suitable for learning? I know that the president, only came today and made those undertakings to assist. But how are you going to enable at least that students can then pick up learning when schools resume?
Yeah, over the weekend already the MEC has called an urgent meeting for the senior management to put their heads together. I think we will then go into the experience of the COVID-19, maybe resorting to rotational timetabling and other measures that we implemented during COVID-19, so that over 3 years experience will come in handy in this time of this demand.
Muzi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.